Greetings! It is me, of course, Dr. Jimmy, lurking in the dark. Let's see, you might see me better if I move closer. Hello. Yes, it's me. And first, as always, showing off the t-shirt. Today I'm wearing Sons of Gallifrey, a sort of Doctor Who, Sons of Anarchy mashup. You get it? Clever. Got it from Redbubble, I believe. So, today, at last, I'm resuming my history of Halloween Horror Nights 23, What Evil Has Taken Root, which was held at Universal Studios Florida back in the year 2013. This is the 16th video in this series. In the videos, previous videos, I have gotten through all the haunted houses and started in on the streets of the event. If you remember, back in 2013, What Evil Has Taken Root, all the streets were Walking Dead. It took over the whole park. Oh, good heavens. It was consternation to a lot of people, but I didn't mind too much. All the streets were themed to the Walking Dead, all the scare zones. They did actually have some set scare zones that year. It wasn't just roaming zombies. And it was all themed to episodes from the first 3 seasons of The Walking Dead, because that's all that was on at that point. The 4th season started during the event, of course. And I had covered the first couple of scare zones, and I had got to the 3rd set scare zone, The Farm, which was located at the very heart of the park, the dead center, if you like, at that little area at the very top of Hollywood Boulevard between Central Park and Battery Park, between Mills Drive and Cafe La Bamba, where they've often had interesting things going on. And the scare zone was called The Farm, which of course was based on the 2nd season episode set on Herschel Green's farm. And they had a marvelous, gigantic set piece, a beautiful barn from Herschel's. It was a bit smoky and burning, of course. If you remember in the program, Herschel had been keeping zombies in his barn. Here's Herschel. Nice chap, Herschel. This is Herschel as he appeared in a later season after he'd lost his foot, but before his head got chopped off. Funko Pop. Look, here's his ponytail. Isn't that cute? Adorable. You wouldn't know his ponytail was there unless you took him out of the box. You take your pops out of the box. Well, I play with them. And the other thing is, I'm never going to sell them, so it doesn't matter if they're not in mint condition to me. But anyway, Herschel and Rick had a bit of a contretemps during those episodes. Ooh, butting heads, because they had very different ideas about the zombies. See, Rick thought the only good zombie, shoot him in the head. That's what you do with zombies. Herschel, however, had a rather silly idea. He's supposedly a man of science, a veterinarian. He took care of little puppies and kitties. That's a good man. He's actually a very good, wise man. But his ideas about zombies, he had a silly idea that he didn't see them as mouldering corpses out to eat human flesh. No, he saw them as sick people. He had the rather silly idea that as sick people, if science were ever able to reverse the zombie virus, which he had sort of figured out it must be a contagion because someone gets bit, then they turn into a zombie. Therefore, it's contagious. There must be a contagious agent, probably a virus. See, he's clever. He figured that out intellectually, but at the same time, he ignored certain salient facts. And so he thought that if they find a cure for this virus, an antiviral agent, that perhaps these people could be restored. But he forgot an important fact, and it's very important to not ignore facts. It's a good warning for a lot of people nowadays. Do not ignore facts. Don't want to get political or anything, but you know, and the fact is that when the person is infected by the zombie virus, when they get bitten, or apparently, it turns out, of course, turns out later in the episode, when Shane got killed, not by a zombie, but he came back anyway, later in that same season, that in fact they were all already infected by the virus and carrying it. So that didn't have anything to do with just transmission by bites. That just quickened the effect. There must be something in the zombie's bite. My theory is a venom of some sort that causes the death after biting, but the point is this: the virus takes effect after the physical death of the person. So the person doesn't just become a zombie, he or she dies. And after they're dead, the virus works on the now dead brain and revives the corpse, who is no longer an ordinary human, but now a corpse that will do what corpses do. They start decomposing, the flesh rots, bits fall off, they get rather smelly, they're actually dead people, and it's the virus that keeps the thing going, you see, and it's not actually a person anymore at all. And that's the problem, because if you're able to eliminate this virus from the zombie, what do you get? A healthy, happy person? No, you get an ordinary dead body that just lies there. You might as well shoot it in the head. It's the same effect. So Herschel wasn't thinking straight because he had emotional attachments to people that had been bitten, you see, and that was a real problem. So he was keeping zombies, capturing them and hiding them in his barn. So his barn was full of zombies. And when Rick found out about it, he did the sensible thing of opening the barn doors and shooting all the zombies, bang, 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 including poor little Sophia. Carol was really upset when that happened, but what can you do? And Herschel was like, damn, you killed all those people. But he didn't, he killed zombies. So there was a bit of tension in the barn between those two. The barn was also a scene of tension between two other characters. Here's Glenn. Now we all go, oh, because we know what ultimately happens to poor Glenn. Bashed in the head by Lucille. But back in season 2, we didn't know that was going to happen yet. And guess you read the comics, but you didn't know that. And Maggie, this is Maggie Green, that's Herschel's daughter, and they had tension of a very different sort, because the moment they laid eyes on each other, they suddenly got the raging hot adolescent hormones going, and it's like, ooh, yes, they snuck after the zombies had been killed, and there was a zombie-free barn. That became their a rendezvous, and there was a lot of rolling in the hay. Woo-hoo! Yes. Maggie and Glenn got it on in the barn, so there was a very different sort of tension going on, as Dr. Frankenfurter, sexual tension. Yes, oh my. So that was some fun tension, as well as the more hostile tension happening in the barn. Eventually, of course, at the climax of the season, hordes of zombies came upon the farm, and they were fucked. Basically, they had to get out, and they ended up going to prison. But that was season 3. But in season 2, what they did, of course, was they lured some of the zombies into the barn and set it afire. And that's why the barn was all smoky, and it was almost like a mini haunted house. You could go into the barn and go through it, and you see big gaping holes in the roof, and of course it's full of smoke because the zombies are roasty toasty, and you have some burnt zombies in there and some not so burnt zombies. They're all coming after you. Quite fun. And I must give a shout out to one young man. I don't know what the scare actor's name was or who he is, but he was very good. He was usually in one of the casts. He was in the doorway area of the barn, and as people started entering, he could pop out from behind the door and get them, sometimes before they ever got in. It was quite enjoyable to watch him scaring people in that area, and he got a lot of young ladies who go, ah, and run, silly. It was quite fun, so I must give a congratulations to a very good scare actor who was doing that in that area. Quite a lot of fun. Once you went through the back of the barn, you're in a sort of farmyard area, and there's lots of props for that, very nice, and some few zombies staggering, and of course, the well. And bubbling in the well was our old friend, the Well Walker. I've shown him before, but here he is. in the barn, all bloated and obese and hideous. And of course he pops in half when they try to pull him out of the well. But here's the rope on the back. I love that. But you don't see that. You just see him in the water. Oh, there's Bob. Hello, Bob. There's my dear friend Bob. She's a cat. Yes, she's making her cameo appearance. She just ate a bunch of gushy cat food. Yeah, I've had to change her diet from the dry kibble to the wet food. She loves that. She loves it. But it's because she's had some terrible health problems recently. She's lost most of her teeth now, unfortunately. So I have to give her the wet food now. But she's not complaining. But then I have to wipe her face. Afterwards, because she can't quite clean herself the way she used to. She's had problems with her tongue as well. So I have to wipe her off a lot. And she doesn't really mind that too much. It's sort of, she may have flashbacks of being a kitten and mother cat licking her, you know, maybe, or whatever, but I have to be cleaning her off a lot because the gushy food gets all over. She makes quite a mess of it. I'm cleaning after the cat all the time, but I don't mind because I'll do whatever I can to help Bob, because she's my little baby pussum. Yes, she is. But enough of that. There's more I could say, but I don't feel like it. Someday, hopefully not too soon, you'll find out more, but hopefully be some time from now. But let's get past that. Going on in the barn, as I said. So you got that little guy at the end. It was quite fun. That wasn't all to it, though. There was more to that wonderful scare zone because of the fire outside outside the barn. There were little pyres set up where zombies were burned, you see, and they were all crispy, and there was a wonderful aroma in the air of burning flesh, which smelled for all the world like barbecue. And it actually made, you'd think, you'd see the burning corpses and smell that and get sick in it. Ew, how horrible. But actually, I usually got rather hungry. Made you want one of those turkey legs. Awful things. Good idea not to eat them. You get fat that way. Yes, as you can see, I've probably had too many those sort of things in the past, and I should cut down a bit so I don't have to stay healthy to take care of my kitty. Right, absolutely. So that pretty much wraps up the farm. I didn't think I'd get all the way through it so quickly. So I'm going to quickly now take my little friends, put them back over where they belong in my Halloween Horror Nights gallery, and come back with another friend to talk about the next scare zone, which was located, the fourth scare zone, located in Central Park area, and it was called the Woodlands. Ooh. Be right back. Bob, entertain the nice people. Entertain the nice people with your catty antics while I'm taking these to the shelves. Putting them all back where they go. Let's see, Rick goes up here for 2012, and Glenn goes right there. Let's see, the Well Walker goes down here at the end of 2012, because that season first appeared at Horror Nights in 2012. Herschel up here. Oops, they go falling over. And Maggie there. Who gets to come back? Oh, you do. And let's get you guys as well. Alright. Be right back. Coming back now. You got to watch Bob licking her paws. Yes. Getting the cat food off her paws. Alright, pause for alarm. Ha! Back again. So the Woodlands. The Woodlands, of course, took advantage of Central Park and all the trees, creating a forest feel, and it basically were any scenes that happened out in the woods in the second and third seasons of the program. And at the very front of it, from the Hollywood Boulevard side near Cafe La Bamba, they had set up a really nifty scene which featured a character from the very first episode of the first season of The Walking Dead, the Bicycle Girl. If you recall, there was a girl who was out riding a bicycle and somehow got into a car crash or something, got cut in half and became a zombie. And Rick is in the park and he sees the bicycle and he's going to steal it. She can't really use it now anyway, because hard to pedal when you've not got any legs anymore, right? And so this creature, though, this upper torso of a zombie, is still crawling in the park, coming after you like, "Well, you're stealing my bicycle, you bastard. Give it back. Ah, I'm going to bite you." That's what she is, Bicycle Girl. And so they had set up a scare actor to portray Bicycle Girl, and you had this little park-like scene with a little white picket fence around it. There's the bicycle, and on top is Bicycle Girl herself, crawling and writhing and looking quite horrific. Well, originally, I think the actual original plan for this was to have a scare actor, because they had built a sort of platform, and so a platform, and they had the park thing on top of it. And the idea is a scare actor could be inside up to the waist, and then out of the top through an aperture would be Bicycle Girl. That is what they did last year in the Walking Dead Haunted House, which had little scenes from different Walking Dead, all 6 seasons up to that point, including the Bicycle Girl scene was in the house, and that's what they did with the scare actor in the house last year. But back in 2013, they did something even more clever, which was very effective and wonderful. Yes, there is a young man who has been a scare actor many years at Horror Nights. If you might recall, in 2015, the chainsaw clowns that were creeping around and attacking people in Springfield, USA, there was one clown in a wheelchair. Yes, and he would go after your chainsaw like he's going to saw your legs off because he didn't have any of his own, you see. And you might have seen that character this past year in the New York streets when they had the apocalypse, Survive or Die Apocalypse. Yes, he was one of the hounds. Arrgh! Go Hounds! Yes, I like the hounds. I gave my allegiance to the hounds. I didn't like either of. Well, I liked, but I didn't give my allegiance to the other two. The matriarchy and the patriarchy. What were they? The Dominion and the Artifice. Yes, that's what they were called last year. I preferred the anarchy of the hounds best, and so he was one of them. And I want to tell you, this is a nice young man. I've met him a few times. He's very pleasant. He did not lose his legs. He was born without them. Therefore, he's never had legs his entire life. So it's not like he doesn't have the trauma of losing your legs and phantom limb syndrome or any of that shit. He's never had legs, so he doesn't, he's done without them his whole life and doesn't miss them, because that's who he is. So he's rather, good-natured about his, I wouldn't call it a disability, I'd call it, his unique status, his diversity. He's fine with it, and so it's quite a lot of fun, and he has a good time, and he portrayed Bicycle Girl. Oh my God, he was cross-dressing. Yes, he was playing a female zombie, but of course his unique physiognomy made it perfect. He could put on the costume and be crawling on top, and he didn't have any legs to begin with. So when people saw that, they couldn't figure out how they did it. It never occurred to them that they hired a legless scare actor to portray Bicycle Girl, and they got the idea that someone could stand inside the thing, the little box structure, but obviously they could see that no one was coming up. I mean, it was obvious in the house last year. You could tell what they were doing, but this time, no, that's not. And people were confounded, and a lot of people thought it was animatronics. They thought, that has to be an animatronic. That can't be a person. And people would sit there, and he'd be playing the character, and he'd be hearing people saying, "Is that animatronic?" And then one person, I got this from them, one person said, "No, it's not an animatronic. I know what they did. It's CGI. Yeah, it's CGI." And that just was so funny. When I heard that, I ended up spitting out my beverage. It laughing, you know, because if you don't spit out your beverage, then it gets out your nose. So it can be quite hysterical. So that's what people thought. It was CGI. Hysterical. Then it was a real highlight of that scare zone. Then as you go through the park, and we're going from Hollywood Boulevard through out to the other end, so that's the way we'll go through this scare zone now, in my mind. You saw lots of woodland scenes from various Walking Dead episodes from the first couple of seasons, including these guys. These are Michonne's pet walkers, and Michonne, of course, originally had 2 zombies with her that she had on little chain leashes, and she'd cut off their arms and cut off the jaw, the lower jaw, so they can't really bite anybody or grab her, and so they just follow her around, unable to do her any harm. But because she had them with her, and the smell of the zombies covers up the smell of human live in the middle, other zombies would pay her no mind, thinking a group of zombies, and would leave her alone. Clever trick. Apparently these were actually people that Michonne knew in life that she took along with them. But that was never really developed quite well in the series, and the comics to go into quite detail. And they were seen, 2 of them, tied to a tree. And Michonne herself was not seen because whatever the contract with AMC and the Walking Dead producers, there's a whole bunch, Valhalla and a bunch of others, they couldn't have the actual human characters, just the zombie characters, which caused some problems, but I never really liked that idea. I'd rather see Rick and Daryl and all those others in the houses and scare zones, but they didn't do that. You just have random, generic survivors who don't really represent any particular character, but zombies you recognize from the series. So they were there, but they were static mannequins chained to a tree. But to give a shout out to Michonne, her katana, that is a samurai sword, was seen up above them in the tree as well. Also in a nearby tree hanging was a little Easter egg, a little door. And if you watched the program, you'd recognize the door as being the little door that Sophia carried around with her. And it was kind of poignant to have Sophia's door in the tree, because we all know what happened to her. She became a zombie herself. Later on in the scare zone, there was one set piece in particular, aside from all the random zombies lurching out of the woods at you, that I really, really dug. And it too showed up last year in the haunted house they did for 26. But originally they had it in the park, and it was really nifty. And it's perhaps a reference to the Chupacabra episode in the 2nd season. Rick is out hunting a deer with his crossbow, and he accidentally shoots himself, not Rick, Daryl, and he shoots himself and he hallucinates all kinds of crazy shit before he gets rescued. But, you know, he's been injured out there, but he's shooting deer, right? So the idea is, here's a deer and it's got crossbow bolts in it. So obviously Daryl has killed a deer, but it's left in the woods because he wasn't able to get it after he'd hurt himself. So there's a big ugly zombie on top of it eating the deer. Nom, 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 nom. Ooh, Bambi tastes good. And I couldn't help but laugh when I saw that, because it reminded me so much of something from my youth. Yes. Back in the 70s, there was a punk band, you might have heard of them, the Sex Pistols, perhaps the first punk band in Britain, the one that helped define the whole concept of punk rock, and they had a song called "Who Killed Bambi?" I believe it was on the Great Rock and Roll Swindle album, and they had cover art for that. Here's a picture. I just managed to find it. It's a bit hard to see, but you can see it has a dead deer with an arrow in it, and it says "Who Killed Bambi?" And I remember that image from my youth when I was a teenager, when I was a fan of that sort of music. And whenever I saw that dead deer with the arrows, the first thing that came to my mind, I was saying, "Who killed Bambi?" And everyone would look at me like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Because they didn't know anything about it, and I'm too damn old. But that was what I always thought of when I saw that particular scare zone. Loads of fun. So that was the fourth scare zone, which was called the Woodlands. That was right by the Garden of Allah area when you saw the deer again. So that pretty much covers that scare zone, the highlights there. So then we have a fifth scare zone, a fifth set scare zone. I think that was the last of the set scare zones. They had the fall of New York, and they had the clear and the farm and the woodlands, and the last one was Survivors Camp. And this was set up in the area right between where Central Park exits and goes off towards the International Food Festival area, as it was then known, today Springfield, USA, on one side, and go the other way and you go toward Kids Zone. And there's a little clearing, a little circular courtyard area, and if you recall back in 2009, that's where they had the Circular Freak scare zone. So in 2013, they set it up as a Walking Dead scare zone, and it was called Survivors Camp, and this featured prominently Dale's RV from the first season of the program. Remember, he got killed. But they had the RV there, the great big Winnebago, and little tents and fires for like a campground where the survivors would be. And they had generic survivors, not representing any specific character, particularly one woman in particular, who would be there running around, shooting at zombies, running away from zombies, and lots of zombies are snarling about. The highlight, though, for this, and this was another scene that was recreated in the Walking Dead house last year, if you might remember, and it was originally presented here, is the wonderful shadow play. And this was one of the first shadow plays they ever had for Horror Nights. It was very delightful, because in the tent set up on the ground, you could see through the tent the shadow of a zombie grabbing a person sleeping in the tent and pulling out entrails and eating them and ripping them up. And it's all done in silhouette from inside. So inside the tent, this carnage is going on. You can see it through the shadow on the outside. Very, very fun and very effective, and it was quite delightful. So that was, again, that's probably why they included that same effect in the haunted house this past year. So I think that covers all the set scare zones. But that wasn't all they had in the streets that year, and I've only got a little bit left. So there's more in the streets, specifically in San Francisco area. It might be considered an extension of the whole New York area, but it was sometimes called the Highway of Doom or something like that, Highway of the Damned. Basically, had lots and lots of motor vehicles, including the bus, the school bus from Cary, Ohio, which again, if you see the kids in Cary, Ohio going on a field trip, get out of town because bad things happen, usually an apocalypse. So that was there, and also, right by the exit of Disaster, which of course was not a Walking Dead house that year, as it had been the year before. In 2013, what did they have in there? 2013. Let me take another look. It's been a while since I checked. No, that was the haunted house. There was Havoc Derailed, of course. So if you get out of Havoc Derailed, you go right into all these zombies, and there were hordes of zombies roaming about in that area as well. So you have these unusual hordes of zombies right there in 2013, just like they'd had the year before, but now they were just roaming through there, chewing on body parts and that sort of thing. But that still wasn't all in the streets. There was, of course, a sort of chainsaw drill team. There was no Rat Lady again that year. Sorry. She wouldn't come back till 2015. But there was a chainsaw drill team, and they made this chainsaw drill team up as basically a sort of group of survivors. And so you saw these people like survivors after the zombie apocalypse with chainsaws to fight off the zombies. And they appeared primarily along the London waterfront area, which of course was all walled up, and sometimes on the bridge that comes across towards what is now Springfield World Expo area, running around with their chainsaws. So we had those guys out there as well. And there were additional scare actors on the whole Plaza of the Stars area going up towards New York. And were, again, some survivors. You had a vehicle that had Daryl's crossbow on it. And I think the station wagon with a message for Sophia on it was right in front of the Lucy area, which of course now is Hello Kitty, but back then was still a Lucy, and so they had that vehicle there. But there was still something else going on in the streets, but I'm running out of time. So when I pick up on the 17th video, I'll probably wrap up the streets with something that happened every day when the park opened for the event, an opening moment, a sort of opening ceremony that happened every single night before you went in, and helped to set the stage for the whole Walking Dead extravaganza in the streets. That will be in part 17. Okay, so this wraps up the video as I've now hit a half-hour mark.